Video.
We're back for another bonus video.
Happy New Year,
Happy New Year.
2026. I'm Sarah.
I'm Kendall.
We are Our Stitching Chronicles. So this is a craft podcast where we originally started it as a craft podcast where we just released monthly podcast videos, but we've been chucking in little side quests. We call them novellas.
Yes.
In between, and we just talk about all things stitching, knitting mostly. 99.9%.
Yeah.
A little bit of sewing, spattering of crochet. So welcome if you are new, and welcome back to our lovely followers.
We thought we'd jump in with a little bit of an update on what we're thinking for our knitting year.
Yes.
So here we are.
I feel like, I don't know about you, I don't have many concrete plans this year. I feel like
I think you even have more concrete plans than I do. Right.
Goals.
2026. So we had make nines last year.
Yep.
We were holding them loosely. We made changes to them as we needed to. It was kind of like if there was a jumper, we subbed it out for another jumper. I haven't gone with a make nine this year.
Neither.
There are definitely some projects I still want to finish up or complete because I've got the yarn for, but I have less, as you're saying, less concrete plans and more just kind of like, I think I'm going to try this, or I want to head in this direction. So we kind of have 5 goals each.
Yes. So 5 overarching knitting goals for our year that aren't necessarily about specific projects. I think they're more, for me, it's about personal growth as a knitter. So we're going to share those 5 goals.
My overarching knitting theme for the year is probably sustain. So I started lots of things last year. We just kind of want to keep them going. And so my knitting aim or knitting goal number 1 is to knit sustainably and intentionally. I've got lots of works in progress that I want to finish off before I can cast on new ones. And I also want to make sure that I'm picking yarn and starting projects, like buying yarn and then picking specific projects that match to that. So not just buying yarn because I like it, which I generally don't do anyway, but going, I'm going to make this project, I'll go and find the right yarn for it. So I have a fairly controlled stash for knitting, and so only buying yarn if I have a project in mind for it.
Yeah.
Thinking making projects that I'm going to keep in my wardrobe for a long time, that I'm going to enjoy the process of knitting, and that I'm not just buying yarn to have in stash or storage that I'm not using.
Yeah. My overarching knitting goal for the year is self-discovery. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel like I'm still discovering my style. I'm still discovering my colour palette, and I'm still discovering what I like. I think something I discovered in 2025 was I see all these patterns and I love them. I add them to my to knit list, or I even knit them, vacation vest, and it's just not my style. It's not something that I'm comfortable wearing. It's not something that suits me, or the colour's not the right colour for me. But I found that there were a few too many things in my wardrobe that I'd knit that I really love the pattern and I really love the yarn, but it just wasn't me. And so I really want to refine what it is that I like and what it is that's my style and colour palette this year. That was my overarching, which actually does happen to be my first goal. And so I've got how am I going to reach that goal? So I want to explore colours to understand what my colour palette and my design preferences are. And I need to pay attention to what it is I'm reaching for. I need to reflect on my finished garments, and I actually need to take that on. And so I want to start doing that with what I knit last year. Mm-hmm. Noticing the colours that I'm reaching for, the fit that I'm reaching for, textures, all of those things. Sorry, so that is my first goal. But it's also kind of my overarching. Yeah.
Build a cohesive colour story, or balance my colour choices with more neutrals. So I love colour. Right now, this is very picturesque of who we are. You're in a black top. I'm in bright red. I'm not saying no to patterns. I'm not saying no to colour work. I just want to make sure that when I do pick for them, like you were saying, they fit into my wardrobe. I do still want to do some colour work projects. I still want to do either a Playful palette by Kutova Kika, or the Instant Crush sweater, which is all coloured mohair. So I still want to do colour work, but I want to be have a few statement pieces of that while also making sure I've got some everyday wear neutrals.
Yeah.
So my coffee run that I've started on, which is bright red, I consider that a neutral just because it's one colour. So a neutral for me doesn't mean...
I was going to say, I don't think that's a neutral.
So neutral for me doesn't mean that it has to be like grey, black, brown, white.
Yeah.
It just means that it has to match in with other things that I have.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying no colour.
Yes.
I just want more like, as you said, cohesive, picking things intentionally. I don't want like 10, like last year I made the jean sweater and I love the jean sweater. There's no point having 10 jean sweaters because they're a little bit too out there. So just balancing some of those like statement pieces with other things that I'll get more wear out of.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my second goal is building a cohesive me-made wardrobe. So something that can just come together. I want it me-made. I want to gift or donate my store-bought items. Multiple reasons for that. I mean, a lot of them are still in really good condition. There's nothing wrong with my garment. There is something so rewarding about pulling something out of your wardrobe and going, I made this. This is mine. And the things that I've bought are really quality. So how nice to give that to the op shop and let someone else love them the way that I have. So I want to create wearable garments and I want most of them to just be those, as you said, those classic reach for. I am quite a basic person in the way I dress. I don't tend to do statement pieces. Having said that, I found that my most reached for jumper of 2024-5, which has also been my most reached for knit of 2026 so far, is my Salty Days top. So it doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be straight up stockinette.
No.
It can have some interest to it, and that's pink, which I would not have thought was my colour, but I just love that jumper, the fit, and they're the sort of things I'm looking at. I want to prioritise things that I can wear with multiple outfits, that I can wear every day. I want that one jumper that is just your everyday
Good one.
go-to.
Yep.
Yeah. What's your third goal?
Third would be I really want to improve craftsmanship.
Yes.
So I want to get better at even tension. So if you look at like your simple thing sweater had like such perfect even tension.
Oh, thank you.
So I want to be able to like work out how do people do that and how do I replicate that in my own. And part of that is I did buy the Patty Lyon's workbook so I can do some of the activities in there and improve. I want to go with skill refinement over speed.
Yeah.
So I want to like focus on the skill rather than just finishing items quickly and refining some techniques and trying some new techniques. So again, I'm not going to pick a particular pattern. I'd love to try steeking. I don't know if that will be this year or not. Depends if I find the right pattern for it. I'd love to do, as I said, one of the other ones, the Playful palette and the Instant Crush are both colour work with multiple colours. I've only done colour work with 2 colours. I'd love to do colour work with multiple. And I want to value the quality of the knitting rather than just over the total number of knitting. So I want to pick garments and pick patterns that have intentional skills sort of attached to them.
Yeah, I love that.
I want to be a learner.
Yes. We should always be learners.
Yeah.
Never stop learning. Doesn't matter how long you've been knitting for. I'm sure that there are things that you can always learn.
If you've got any like ideas on skills that I should give a go, let us know.
My third goal, I want to knit a basic everyday sweater.
Yep.
I am thinking the Lakes Pullover by Ozetta
Yes.
in black. I think having that project that you can reach for, that just goes with everything and anything. You can wear it at home over some leggings when you're on the couch, but you can also wear it out to lunch or whatever. And I think I want one in a light and in a heavy weight so that, you know, those spring nights and then those winter days. And I want to learn from that process. Like what to me is a basic sweater. I think as well, like I've always gone for basic sweaters that are just, you know, this raglan or circular yoke kind of situation, and then it's just all in the round, and I'm really excited. So one of the reasons that I chose the Lakes Pullover by Ozetta was because it had the saddle shoulder construction, and so it kind of fits in with one of my later goals that I'm talking about skill development as well.
Number 4, always having the right project for the moment. So thinking about 2025, I was often like getting ready to go somewhere and being like, I have no stockinette projects for on the go. And so I'd be like, well, I've got to take something complicated or not have anything at all. And so even with the current whips that I have.
And you can't not have anything at all.
You can't.
No.
Nope. Even with the current whips that I have, I'm making sure that one is a lower tension one. So whether it's basic socks or a basic sweater, or I'm even thinking about like some crochet amigurumi that I can have on the go, just so that I've always got the right project for the moment, whether that's being out and about or on the run. And if it's just sitting at home on the couch, then making sure I've got something that's a bit more detailed or cable or lacework heavy.
Love
So
it.
always having the right project for the moment, whether it's socks, crochet, amigurumi, sweater, something more detailed.
Love that.
Yep. Avoiding the frustration of having nothing suitable to take out.
Yeah. I really struggle with that forward planning.
Same.
I am not a great forward planner in the small details of things. I kind of...
Or I hate having whips, so I just want to finish everything and
Yeah.
then I actually don't have the ongoing.
I don't hate having whips. My fourth goal is I want to explore new designers. I feel like I love Kutova Kika. She is probably one of the bigger knitwear designers that got me into knitting, switched from crochet to knitting. She'll always have a place in my heart. I will still probably knit a couple of patterns by her this year, don't get me wrong. But I really want to explore other designers out there. Like, I see all these amazing things come up and my queue is just completely full of Kutova Kika, and I just want to branch out.
Yeah.
So expanding my design vocabulary, if you will.
Yeah, you say that, but I did go back through and looked at what patterns we made last year, and you still had a decent spread of designers. There was still about like 13 or 14 different designers on there.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really interesting, because I feel like all I knit was Kutova Kika.
Yeah, but when you looked, there were other sock designers. There was Vacation Vest. Like, there were actually a couple in there.
Smattering of others.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of my issues as well with planning, like, what you're going to knit, new patterns and new designs come out so often. And I feel like I really want to knit that, but I don't have the space in my plans right now. And so I think that's why I'm keeping my plans really loose, because I want to be able to have that flexibility to go, oh, this new design's come out, I'm going to cast it on.
Yeah. And you're also moving from like being in a situation where you've been studying lots to where you'll be working. And so you don't know what that will look like either. Sorry.
Less knitting time. No, I'm really excited. I'm really excited to start my new job.
Number 5, tracking, reflecting and adjusting my plans and my knitting. I love my Emma Kate Co diary. So what I've been doing is just writing down, like, it's got a little spot at the bottom of each day to write what you've been working on. So I've just been like writing in what I've worked, what I've knit or sewed or crafted on each day. So just tracking daily what I've been working on. And then when I finish projects, just thinking like, will I wear this? Where does it fit into my wardrobe? So having like a physical tracking spot of, am I crafting every day? What am I working on? What's taking my attention?
I want to look at prioritizing the skill and craftsmanship. So last year, my goal was to try and focus on the process and the journey rather than the finished product. So not rushing through, but enjoying the moment. I find I can get bored really easily. And as I said, I might do half an hour on one project and half an hour on another. So I'm really just trying to be present in the moment and enjoy the knitting and what I'm doing. So I want to continue that into 2026, and I want to add on skill development and craftsmanship of my projects. Being very deliberate, curious, going outside of my comfort zone and actually choosing patterns that I may not have because of skills. So one of the projects that I'm knitting at the moment, you'll see in our podcast that's coming out soon, it has a particular skill in it that at first I was like, no way, nah, that sounds too much, I don't want to do it. No, you can do it. I did it, and so I'm going to learn that. Through this as well, Kendall, if you saw in the last podcast, Kendall actually bought me a copy of the Patty Lyons book, so I'm also going to be working through that to help build my skills as well.
That takes us on to your patterns that you want to reach for this
Our
year.
specific knitting plans.
Things I will definitely knit. I will continue the Arctic Light. I will finish up my whips, so Coffee Run, my Reading Nook socks and my Book Club pullover. If you watch our next chapter, you can see some updates on them.
That's coming soon. Hasn't been released yet.
Yeah. I also want to do some colour work with multiple colours, so either the Playful palette or the Instant Crush, which I mentioned before. And Louie and Lola do some kits for the Instant Crush.
Oh.
And they're fairly decently priced for what they are.
Nice.
And then the Playful palette just looks like it has lots of fun colour options. It's a Kutova Kika one.
Yes.
And then the only other thing that I want is something all over textured, perhaps in a neutral beige oat cream white colour. Because I'm looking at your Arctic Light and it looks so classy in the white.
Oh,
so.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
I know, I do love it.
So that's kind of my specific knitting plans for the year.
They're still quite generic.
They're quite generic.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Mine are also quite generic because I want to keep myself somewhat open to new things as they come along, and I don't want to feel locked into specific things. Yeah, that said, I do have quite a few. I also want to finish my 2025 whips, so the whips that I brought in from 2025, my Arctic Light, my Sweetheart, my Robinson wrap, and I've got 2 pairs of socks that were from last year. Aside from the Sweetheart and the Robinson wrap, the others can kind of just take however long they take. I do want to finish the Sweetheart and the Robinson wrap before I go to Japan in April. Going to Japan in April. Garments that I definitely do want to make. So I actually want this year I do have a little bit of a theme in terms of specific garments. Colour work. I know in my goals I said basic wardrobe, keeping it simple. I want to include some colour work in that. I'm probably not a big bright out there statement with my colour work. I'm probably more simple styles and textures and not textures, but you know what I mean, like patterns on my colour work. But I really want to add more colour work. I keep looking at some of the beautiful things out there and just thinking, I want to do that. And I've never done a proper, true colour work project before. I've experimented with it. So some garments that I definitely want to make. I want to make the Harriet sweater by Lynette. I want to make the 3 Swords jumper in the Viking Knits book for my husband Dave. Possibly would like to knit the porcelain sweater. That's kind of just in there as a maybe. The Afric jumper by the Creya Bayer is a possibility. I love that kind of style in there. So they're the colour works that I've sort of got my eye on. Some other things, I'm definitely going to knit my husband a zipper sweater by Petite Knit. I've got the yarn for that already. I'm actually going to knit that in this Drops Charisma. I showed him this last night and I said, would you wear this colour? And instantaneous yes. And so I was like, yes, I have a sweater quantity's worth. I might buy some mohair to hold this with. I looked at Lilt on Bendigo Woolen Mills. They don't have a colour to match. So that's the Zipper Man. I would like to knit the Summer Nights top. I've already got the yarn for that as well, which is my cotton cashmere in grey that we got on our yarn crawl. The Wavy Babe top, because I do have to have at least one Kutova Kika pattern in there. I want to knit an everyday cardigan. I have got this gorgeous yellow cardigan that I love throwing on when I'm a little chilly, but it's not cold enough to warrant a full jumper. And the yellow doesn't necessarily always go with everything. So sometimes things clash and I'm like, that's annoying. So I want to knit myself a really nice everyday one. And I looked at a fair few different patterns, but I have something so specific in my mind. You know, when you have that, it's so annoying. So the closest I could get was the November Jacket by Petite Knit or the Moon Veil Cardi by Natalia Ledvanova. So I'm thinking those 2 for my everyday cardigan. I want to, you know how I said that I want to try new designers? Well, the new designer that I've had my eye on the most has been Ozetta. So I would like to knit a couple of her patterns. I've already talked about the Lakes Pullover, but I also want to knit the Shoreline. It's just this beautiful, it's got cable crosses in it. Obviously it's thought out wear, but it almost looks just like sporadic on it. But that it's not in a line and it's not bracketed by pearls.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
So it just kind of bleeds into the rest of the stockinette.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know, every time I see it, I'm like, it's so classic. So I'm thinking that. And I've got the pattern for the Staffen.
Yes.
Cardigan, jumper, vest. One of the things I love the most about the Creya Bayer is most of her patterns, you're not just getting one pattern. You're getting like 6 patterns.
Yeah.
She'll have this texture, that texture. She's released one that you can do stockinette or half fisherman's rib.
Yeah, cool. Clever.
With a crew neck or a Henley or a like high collar.
Yeah,
cool. Seriously. Yeah. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So I actually have got that pattern and I do want to knit that this year.
Yeah.
I have got a gift knit in mind for my mum and for my dad. So while I wanted to not sort of lock myself into gift knitting as much this year, I do still love it. So I'm going to be knitting my dad a vest and my mum a pair of felted slippers.
Yeah, cool.
And also, I want to try knitting for olive yarn. Everybody
Yes.
raves about it. Everybody talks about it. It looks amazing every time I see it knit up. So that is on my goal of things to knit with. And I want to knit a burgundy or Bordeaux.
Oh, cool.
Like burgundy Bordeaux.
Okay, yeah.
It's kind of the same jumper.
Yeah.
I'm actually thinking the Harriet sweater in burgundy Bordeaux with the white as the colour work.
Oh, cool. Yep.
Yep. So colour work is my...
It's up there.
Bit of my thing.
Fun.
Yarn stash plans.
I have a vest or slipover quantity of some Bendigo woolen mills from a few years ago that I got from an op shop. So I want to use that up in something. I want to start and finish some of the projects that I already have with yarn in mind. So I've got the yarn ready for the Whim Pullover, which was a collaboration between Hobby and Pom Pom. I've got the Frederick sweater by Kolibri by Johanna, and I want to do that in a colourful mohair. And I've got just some socks that I want to keep having in the background.
Yep.
I've got a very healthy stash of cotton amigurumi, so I'm going to use some of that.
Yep.
And I've got some random skeins in like sock colours. So, you know, I'll have one skein that's a 4-ply fingering, so I can do a pair of socks from that.
I am going to be very intentional with my yarn purchases this year. I was reasonably good last year, but I still feel like I bought things with a pattern in mind, but then I ended up with this massive yarn stash with patterns in mind
The yarn
that I never
or the
knit.
yarn didn't quite work for it. Or,
Yes, I am still going to be buying yarn for specific patterns, but I'm going to be waiting until I'm ready to start that pattern. And the exception may be Fibre Feast, because when in Rome. I want to try and just use up my stash as much as I can and see how I go with that. For my current yarn stash, I am going to, as I said, be using this up to knit Dave's zipper jacket. I've also already got the yarn in stash to knit his Viking jumper, so that will be that. I have got 3 200-gram balls of the Bendigo Woolen Mills Whisper in black, which I was originally going to do a colour work in, but I've decided that I don't want a black background.
Yep.
I actually really want a light background with the green. I'm thinking that that's what I'm going to use to knit my basic, perfect, everyday lace pullover by Ozetta, just in that black Whisper. And the cashmere cotton that I have in stash, I am going to be using for the Summer Nights cami. Camisole. I have got other yarn in stash. Like I've got 4 200-gram balls of the 5-ply, which is way too much for any one project. It's 5-ply Classic by Bendigo Woolen Mills, and it's in a rust orange colour. It's really beautiful. I bought that when I was a crocheter, so you use a lot more in a project than what you do in knitting. So I bought 4 and I don't know quite what to do with it. So I'd like to find something that I can use up that or maybe sell it. That might be a good idea because I'm just tired of the waste, you know. It sits there and it's not doing anything. I think that's my stash.
Well, they are our loose plans and intentions
2026.
for 2026.
Yeah.
We'll see where the year takes us.
Yes. Well, if you have got plans, intentions, goals, specific, loose, what are you doing? Are you doing specific or are you doing loose?
Do you have a make 9? Do you just have you want to make a textured cardigan? You know?
Yeah. Have you got any recommendations for my me-made wardrobe? Let us know.
Let us know. Tell us.
If you've got a really great sort of small designer that you know of that writes a pattern really well and is really clear and easy to follow, do let me know.
Yeah. Happy knitting in 2026. We'll keep an eye out for our next podcast or our next chapter.
Yeah.
That will be in about 2 or 3 weeks. And then we're generally monthly.
Yeah. I have started a little bit of a spinning
So there might be some other ones.
journey. So if you're interested in my spinning stories, I will be chucking up some videos. Happy New Year, friends. Bye.
Bye.
Pets of the pod. Hey, kitty. Kendall's cat is deciding if she likes me. I think I'm
You're in.
I think I'm in.